Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today at your back channel. Tacitus today, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about entrapment recording. So using your mobile cell phone to record somebody without their knowledge or consent. Now, you know, the recent lawsuit against Tucker Carlson by, I think it's somebody called Abby Grossberg or something like that. It's alleged, I don't know the allegation, it's out in the public domain now, but it's alleged that she's recorded many, if 90, I think was a number I saw, 90, and if I've understood it correctly, 90 recordings of conversations inside, not only of Tucker Carlson, but of him talking to other members of the team, producers and so on. So now the allegation is, and it's been hyped up by the leftist journals, that it's, it contains misogyny and so on and so forth. So no, I don't know how true that is or isn't. I would suspect it's just a nuisance lawsuit that's being used by someone to extract a nice payout, but I don't know. That's only my view. I don't know. But just on the issue of being recorded without your knowledge, because if you're talking to people that work for a long time about a subject that's contentious and so on, if somebody switches on the recording halfway through, then you're missing the build-up or the context and that sort of stuff. And if they then selectively edit that, it can make anyone look pretty bad, or silly or unpleasant or whatever. So these are, but I've noticed these tactics are increasingly coming into play now. I think I touched on this a while ago, but in a business I was sharing, we were doing a contract of like a subcontract of work, and this is in high tech stuff and so on. But they the client, or rather the main contractor, if you will, that we were sort of working subcontracting to, they wanted to get out of the contract with us. So they've signed a contract that's very clear and precise. It's this body work, this is the amount of money that's paid, and so on. Now, the way the contract was, if they pulled the pin without going through a certain process, if they decided to end the contract without going through a certain process of collaboration and justification, and paying us out for the costs we'd already mobilized to meet and that sort of thing, then they would be in breach of the contract. Now, what they sought to do was, there was a clause in it that said if there was, and I'll paraphrase this, but if there was particularly obnoxious behavior from either party, then that could be cause for instant ending of the contract. Now, this is not a contract one individual to another. This is a contract one organization to another. So it's a kind of a different thing. But so I accidentally came in, because again, one of those times when somebody wasn't available and I went in to fill the breach, and there was a conversation, and I sensed that they were looking, trying to find a way to wriggle out of things, but without paying us what we spent. They could have ended the contract, right on the spot, and handed us a check for a certain amount of money, and that would have been the end of it. But they wanted to end it, but didn't want to pay the money. So they were looking, how can we wriggle out of this contract without paying these guys? That was where they were coming from. So they obviously sat down and thought, well, how are we going to do this? So someone got the bright idea of, and I assume they've done it before, given how sort of casual and relaxed and so on they were about it. I reckon they've done this a number of times previously. Probably have tried it, trying it on with someone who's been around as much as I have is a different thing. But I sensed that was probably in the mix of where they were going to go. Now, I seeing that I wanted to head it off because these things inevitably end up, being unpleasant, and I wanted to head that off because I want to stay sweet with these guys because they've got some good connections and we can get some good work from them. So I didn't want it to get to a point where hostility would come in because then you lose the relationship. So now they should have thought of that, of course, but they didn't. They're not thinking that far ahead. They're thinking of right now, this very minute, we want to go to this contract, we don't want to pay. They're not even thinking of tomorrow or the day after. So whereas I am, so I don't want the conflict. I'm trying to find ways to avoid, and I sense it's coming. So I tried to go to their head guy and say, look, who I know, reasonably well, and say, look, we need to, is there any problems? Is there something you want to do? Do you want to? I even offered the option. Do you want to wind the contract down so we could start sort of a disengagement process that wouldn't be painful to anybody? Because I'm about to mobilise more resources to do the project. So if I know now, I can sort of limit our exposure and thus limit their potential exposure. But he's not ready to pull the pin straight away. I assume he's waiting for another shoe to drop somewhere, but he's not ready to pull the pin straight away. And so he denies there's a problem. No, everything's fine. Everything's sweet. And lots of backslapping and let's have a coffee and everybody loves everybody. And but I wasn't convinced. I thought no, they're still going to go ahead with it. Anyway, they did. Now this is where this recording entrapment things come in. So a guy was selected to come along and use some very rough language. Just burst into the room I was in. Stood there, verbaling me, giving me some really sort of, some rough language was used, and it sort of caught me by surprise and startled me, the sort of the suddenness and the vehemence of the thing. So it was an ambush. Let's call it what it is. It was a fucking ambush. So then after having sort of revved me up, he then switches the phone on, which I hadn't picked up at the time, given the sort of the drama of the moment. It's something that's easy to miss. He then switches the record, puts the phone on the desk in front of both. Now, having the phone on the desk isn't unusual these days. That's, everyone's got a phone. It's the main source of communication. So you keep it close so you can you take the call or see the text, SMS messages or whatever. So it's not unusual to have it there. And nor does the phone necessarily have on the screen, that it's recording. So it can be just a blank, dark screen on the phone, or it can be in someone's pocket. I mean, this one was on the desk. So having revved me up, he then started asking some reasonably provocative questions and making some fairly outrageous assertions. Now, I didn't know it was recording, and I'd missed the thought. I hadn't even crossed my head that he'd be doing this. I didn't think that level of treachery was something that they would resort to. But they were very keen to get out of the contract and again not pay us. So I was very measured in my responses and was stuck sort of to a position that if they, the contract was very clear, and if they wanted to break it, there was a process that was written into the terms of the contract, and that was fine with me. And if they adhered to those terms and conditions, that was okay. And I'm glad I took that. I'm glad I was there on that day, because if one of the other people that we had, maybe a younger guy, more inexperienced, or a young guy who still blushes red when anyone sort of finger wags him or anything like that, it could have gone very differently. They could have got him to say something that may have legally obligated us to behave in a certain manner, but that doesn't work with me. So anyway, I kept the measured thing. Now, that was sort of the end of it. They didn't get their way, and we gave them some money off. For example, if the disengagement process was 50K, we wrote off 10K just to try and keep sweet with them, which we ended up not doing, by the way. They still were angry with us, but why didn't you roll over, you damn motherfucker? But so one of the people that worked there came to us for a job later, in fact, recently, and she brought it up in conversation that they had sat down and strategized, how can we get Billy Bob to say something? So the deal was, and this is the this is the treacherous nature of the recording. The deal was they could go in, rev Billy Bob up, shout at him, scream at him, threaten him, wait till he's all head up and he's going to come out with a lot of F words or C words or threats and counter threats. I mean, wait till he's got to that point. Switch on the phone, just the recording of the phone, just before he lets fly. And then we've got him. We can say, oh, look, listen to this. You said fuck and you said this and you said that. And that's the obnoxious behavior. That gives us the right to end the contract without paying you, summarily on the spot. So that was their intention. So it was a set piece stage managed maneuver, and they were it had worked. My guess was correct there. It had worked for them in the past and had served them very well, and they tried it on again, but it didn't work with me. So they were particularly annoyed and outraged that they had to pay up. Now, again, I don't know who was the winner in this. I mean, if they'd been professional about it and come to me and explained, that they were maybe in a difficult spot, we would have worked something out for them. It was in our interest to keep that relationship sweet. The only outcome that's worthwhile. I was prepared to write off, a decent amount of money to keep that relationship sweet, but I wasn't prepared to write off the total amount. That wasn't going to happen. So if they'd come to me and talk to me, but they didn't, or to one of my colleagues, they didn't. They decided to come and do the full battery of let's kick his ass and let's record him saying something indiscreet and so on. Now I was concerned about the treachery of it all, that they would premeditate that level of treachery, but it's not surprising, and I'm now sort of coming to grips with the idea that this is how business is done. This is increasingly how business is done, to make outlandish and ridiculous threats and try and provoke someone into. I had a meeting with sort of a colleague who wanted he had a small share in the business. He wanted to be bought out, and he wanted us to buy him out, and wanted to convince me that he should be bought out for a price that was quite a bit above what any reality was, and so he tried to provoke an incident, if you like, a confrontation, but record it and then use that against us in I forgot the court proceedings or something like that, or through an arbitration. Now I wasn't aware he was doing it, but I figured he was the sort of guy who would, and so he came fairly hard at me, and so I was on the verge of letting fly. You fucking moron, you fucking idiot! Don't shit me. I was on the verge of really letting fly because he was that much of a dickhead. But something, I don't know what it was in the voice of the back of my head said, no, be sort of come across as very reasonable and very measured. Well, if that's the way you feel, Jimmy Jack, but I think, and so I was very measured and very calm with it. And I could see his exasperation as he was trying to rev me up to get me to say something indiscreet. So we need to just look. I mean, if you're in business and you're dealing with, decent amounts of money, that sort of stuff, or anything sensitive that such as controversial views or opinions, even that is where you're going to probably be or may be a target for some form of entrapment, such as trying to record you in a stage managed, edited sort of thing, just to make you look bad, or to be used against you in legal proceedings or something like that. And I see the instances of this are increasing. Now, I noticed there was a court case a while ago where somebody recorded somebody, but I think it might have been an employee recording a boss or something like that. And the court case was that the lawyers representing the boss guy was saying, well, it's illegal because you didn't get permission. But the court, the judicial officer said, well, did you expressly say that you were not giving permission? The other, so well, we didn't know that the person was recording. That doesn't matter. You have to expressly say, we're going to have a conversation and you do not have my permission to record it. And the legal verdict was, unless you say that at the beginning of a conversation, then you have you have no legal standing to say that that's an illegal conversation and so on. So I mean I don't know how that would stand up on appeal and so on, but it's an interesting position to take. So if anyone appears in front of you with a mobile phone, you say, well, if you don't switch it off, I'm not going to talk to you. I don't know where this is going to go, other than sowing the maximum distrust among workers and colleagues and people you have to interact with. I can't see what benefit this is or is going to be. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.